Hello everybody, how are you going? And welcome to this video where we will be looking at some more Historica Canada videos, snapshots throughout Canada's history, but this one we are lucky enough to be having a brand new Heritage Minute being Edwin A. Baker.
As I looked upon the battlefield in front of me, a German star shell lit up the desolate landscape. I watched as a bullet smashed through the bridge of my nose and left me to the mercy of the darkness.
What?
I worried I would be dependent on others for the rest of my life. But Sir Arthur Pearson and the staff of St. Dunstan's had other plans.
Right.
With their help, I knew I could be self-reliant, and I wanted to bring this idea home to Canada.
Wow.
I wanted Canadians to know that we could hold jobs, that we could contribute, that regardless of sight, all would read, that we, the blind, would shape our own lives, our own destiny.
Blinded by a sniper's bullet in 1915, Edwin A. Baker went on to co-found the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, shaping a path forward for the blind across Canada for generations to come.
Wow. That is a pretty impressive story, and I had no idea where it was going to be going, especially considering I did not expect him to go blind from it. In terms of how he was delivering, he said it smashed through the bridge of my nose, but it sounded like it might have been a lucky break in terms of it only hit his nose. But no, he just wasn't able to escape the path or the shrapnel and everything else that became of it. But then it didn't stop him at all. To go on and be so successful and to go from London and bring it back to Canada, like you said, and go, no, this isn't the end. I'm not going to be dependent on people for the rest of my life, especially in 1915. The services and even the technology available isn't going to be there. You're going to be so dependent or feel like such a burden on the people around you, perhaps, because you are going to require so much constant attention unless you are so driven. Like if this guy was just able to take himself out of the bed and found these kind of ideas, schools, institutions, incredible. However, I have come back to the start here because I want to listen to exactly what he said again. He said something about a German star or a German...
As I looked upon the battlefield in front of me, a German star shell lit up the desolate landscape.
Star shell. I can't exactly, that was just, it's a crazy soundscape as well. It's so horrific just to be having that hit you in the ears. But either way, a German star shell, I do not know what that is. But like you said, to be lighting up the night sky, I mean, I wonder how often that happened, just using the flare and using the light from other artillery and other elements just to be then picking people off. As they said, it was a sniper bullet that managed to take him out, and man, the millimeter precision that could have been either way. It could have either completely missed him or completely got him by mere millimeters or centimeters. But either way, it's not like that sniper has thermal vision, night vision, reconnaissance aircraft that are able to instantly communicate data and information to him. Nothing like that. And so was it a common practice almost to be illuminating the battlefield with explosions, artillery, or anything like that? And then really, it blows me away every time, and I guess it shouldn't because it's so consistent, but Historica Canada always do so well at creating the atmosphere of the time, from the typewriter to the costumes to the set design to everything. They just bundle it all up in one, and it's only a minute, but it always feels like such a well-packed timeline. Like they fit so much in, doesn't feel drawn out, but it definitely feels longer than a minute, or at least they are so efficient at communicating the relevant information. I mean, even from the fact that from the vocals saying that they can take jobs, and then he's clearly learnt, or maybe he could learn, or maybe he'd learnt previously to act as a typewriter, or act as a typewriter, to use a typewriter, but still to be still able to use it after you're blind, to hold the job and be translating, I guess, through earpieces into a typewriter. That would be a relearning process in its own regard. And so I wonder, even though he was so driven, how difficult were those acts? How much almost acclimatization, you could call it, was there to just mundane tasks, to just generic office tasks, everyday tasks? There's going to be such a steep learning curve, but when he seems to be so driven and just so caring about not just his own pathway throughout life, but everyone else's, to be setting up, like they said at the end, the institution, there's clearly a drive there, and there's clearly someone that is very, very thoughtful. And so, of course, it is going to be historically accurate, but I do wonder, is this building that we are seeing here, the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, still look like this? Still in its same place, still operational, and all of those kind of things? I can only presume it's going to be still operational, but what does it look like now? What kind of legacy did he leave behind? Because I can't imagine that he would be with us anymore, considering this was 1915. And so, all things considered, as much as it is a gigantic personal loss to be losing your vision like that, he feels like the kind of guy that, in retrospect, wouldn't trade it for the world. He would not trade his vision back because he has given sight and reading and ability and community back to so many people throughout the last 100 years. The Battle for Hill 70, Lens, France, August 15, 1917. Hoping to divert German resources from the Wow That's a Word campaign, the Canadian Corps launched a bid for Hill 70. They fired drums of burning oil. Whoa, like drums? Is that a real photo of what they're firing? Because I guess that's not exactly what I envision when I think of drums. I'm thinking 55-gallon drums, which would be very, very heavy and also really difficult to fire because they're not particularly designed to be fired like that. But to be having canisters of burning oil, I guess you just heat them over a fire to, 300 degrees or something, and then just absolutely rocket them away. It sounds medieval. But I guess it's not. I guess it really isn't. When you see some of these war techniques like this, it is a serious technique that will cause damage to the opposition, so to say. It's a brutal way to go about it, and I wonder if it would still be allowed. I can only hope not as well. But when you see just these barrels, just these mortar casings, so to say, just buried in the ground, one after another, that's pretty crazy. But then why are these guys able to be out in the open and not being shot and being blinded like Edwin was, but then still able to make it from a distance point of view to the German positions? I mean, I feel like in my mind, I wasn't thinking they're going that far, but maybe they're like some serious long-range artillery of burning oil. By 6 a.m., the Canadian infantry had captured its first goals. Whoa! What? Just like that? By the end of the first day, 1,000... What? Huh? Why? Just by... They captured the high ground. So that obviously there was retaliation. 21 counterattacks of varying degrees, I can only imagine. 1,000. Jeez, just in this. The finest performances of the war. What? Oh, that's such a heartbreaking kind of place to be in, because to be saying it was a great and wonderful victory, regarded as one of the finest performances of the war, but then to be seeing these numbers, 9,000 and 25,000. Okay, well, those ratios are actually okay, but still 9,000 and overall 34,000 people gone in a single conflict? Just the battle for Hill 70? Why was this hill so particular? I don't know enough to know what it is about Hill 70. I mean, I guess the high ground is always a strategic element, but 34,000? A strategic element of 34,000 wounded or killed? Especially considering it went from 4:25, and then by 6 a.m., the Canadian infantry had captured its first goals. An hour and a half later, just like that. Like, that is so ridiculously effective. But just at what cost? That's just... At what cost? By the end of the first day, 1,000 Canadians were dead, 2,500 wounded, and 40 taken prisoner. Like I said, to be... What kind of retaliation is being sent back after the burning oil? I mean, they're clearly losing, or they clearly lost. But what kind of retaliation? Is it gas? Is it other poisons? Is it just general artillery and gunshots? Is it airborne? Is it... I have no idea enough. I mean, there could have been so much more explanation about what is going on at Hill 70, because to boil it down to be saying, but they had captured the high ground, that's a really tough call to be making. I feel like it must have been such a strategic position that everyone was after it. Just to be capturing the high ground, to be willing to expend that much artillery and personnel on one location over the span of a couple of days, that's a brutal brutal conflict. Here we go. I do love the description for this. It can really just help us fill in a couple of blanks, but the capture of Hill 70 in France was an important Canadian victory during the First World War and the first major action fought by the Canadian Corps under the Canadian commander. Wow, to be having that kind of success rate in terms of you just brought on with 100% success rate. I mean, you did lose a lot, but from an overarching point of view, to be going, well, we expended this, but we won what we wanted, I guess they would be happy with that. They clearly were, because it was deemed to be such an important victory, but the battle in August 1917 gave the Allied forces a crucial strategic position overlooking the occupied city of Lens. Wow, okay then. I mean, there's always more to learn about history, but this is not one that I've ever feel like I've heard about before. It's clearly a very important point of view that a lot of people were heavily involved in, but it's hard to step past the fact that it really, as much as General Headquarters regarded it as one of the finest performances of war, and there's not much to argue against that, at the same time, when you see those numbers, it really just hits you slap bang in the face in terms of what is it all worth it. Like, just the numbers, the sheer volume of individuals that were thrown at these finest performances, apparently. It's a bit difficult to wrap your head around, to go, well, surely not. I mean, you can see just how efficient, I guess, modern day war efforts can be. Like, you just don't have these kind of numbers of personnel just constantly. I mean, it is a world war compared to smaller wars in the scheme of things, but still, it's a little bit too raw for a lot of people to really be able to grasp like this. There's only a few people in this world that can probably truly understand what that kind of performance would truly take to be able to recreate. From the oil to the tactics to the personnel, it sounds like a brutal element, but I guess hopefully to some degree someone can say it was worth it.